Anita took the pacifier out of her pocket and slid it between his lips, then cuddled him close to her breasts and began rocking. Howard slowly closed his eyes and fell fast asleep in her arms. When she was sure he was in a deep sleep, she got up from the rocking chair and lovingly laid him on the bed. She took a small teddy bear that was sitting on top of the toy chest beneath the window and tucked it carefully in his arms. She turned on the nightlight and went to the door, switching off the overhead light as she went out the door. Before closing the door, she blew him a kiss and said, "Night-night, little Howie." Her voice dropped lower in volume as she said to herself, "I really wish you could have remained my husband and given me a real baby instead of becoming one yourself. Unfortunately, your sins caught up with you. I wonder how small you're going to get. I guess it doesn't make any difference now, you've passed the point of no return. Your reflexes are already those of a toddler. If only you could only see how adorable you look sucking on your pacifier in your sleep. A week or two of talking like a baby and you'll be thinking like one too. In a month or so, you'll have forgotten that you ever were a man. You'll just be mommy's baby. Sweet dreams, baby. It will all be over soon." When Howard woke the next morning, his crotch felt clammy and itchy. He opened his eyes to see a teddy bear hugged between his arms and the ring of the pacifier that was still in his mouth flipped up over his nose. His eyes snapped open as he realized that his surroundings were not part of some nightmare he had been having. He was at home, in the spare bedroom that Anita had redecorated as a nursery. Suddenly the memory of what Anita had done to him the night before flooded his mind. He spit out the pacifier onto the pillow and shuddered at thought of his submissive behavior the night before. "What the hell was I thinking of?" he thought in consternation. "If I continue down that path, next thing you know I'll be drinking from baby bottles and shitting in my pants." He moved his legs and the itching from his crotch intensified. Howard put his hand down to feel his crotch and was met by the soft blanket fabric of the sleeper. He pushed down hard with his hand and felt pee bubbling out of the foam padding of the training pants. "I've got to get out of these wet pants now," he told himself and began fumbling with the zipper. "The zipper pull must be under this thing at my throat," he thought as he traced the path of the fastener from his ankle up to his chest. Howard tried to unbutton the catch of the zipper cover but discovered that from the angle he was forced to work from, the job was impossible. Apparently, the cover had been designed to keep prying little fingers from disrobing without a mommy's help. He was trapped. "The bitch," Howard thought to himself angrily, "she's trying to turn me into a baby." He squeezed his crotch again and felt the fabric become damp beneath his fingers. "Oh my God. I'm starting to soak my pajamas," Howard thought in desperation. "If I don't get out of these clothes soon, the pee will seep down to my feet. I've got to get help." Howard's anger melted like a snowball on a midsummer's day when he realized the dire straits he was in. He needed help and couldn't be picky about who he asked. Howard could already feel the pickling of a new bout of diaper rash on the inside of his legs and bottom. "Anita," Howard called as loudly as he could. A minute later the bedroom door swung open as Anita entered the room. One look at the dark blue patch on his crotch told Anita what he was calling her for. She smiled inwardly, but showed a fierce expression to Howard as she said, "Howie, what did Mommy say about calling her Anita? If you call me that one more time, I'll put you over my knee and give you a spanking. You've got to remember that you are only a toddler and toddlers your age aren't allowed to call their mommies by their first names. Now start acting your age." Howard gulped. He had forgotten about her promise to spank him the night before. The expression on her face and her towering stature left no doubt in his mind that she would and could carry out her threat without breaking a sweat. He lowered his head and said contritely, "Me sorry, Mommy. Me wet." "See?" Anita nodded and said, "You are indeed. Come on, little boy. I'll change you after breakfast. Your sleeper is going to have to be washed anyhow, it won't make any difference if you get them any wetter." She took him by the hand and led him to his breakfast of oatmeal and Ovaltine. She sat him on his booster seat and tucked a paper towel in his collar to act as a bib before she sat his bowl of oatmeal before him. During breakfast, he peed again in his pants, but Anita refused to change him until he had eaten every last bit of oatmeal from his bowl as punishment for his insolence by calling her by her first name. By the time he had finished his oatmeal, the wet patch on his crotch had spread all the way down to his knees and his bottom was completely soaked. The cloth diaper she had inserted into his training pants as a liner the night before had not been able to soak up all his pee. Anita undressed him right there in the kitchen, saying that it didn't make any sense to drag him back to his nursery and undress him so she could bring his soggy PJs back to the utility room next to the kitchen for washing. He was humiliated when she lifted the limp soggy diaper by the corner out of his wet training pants and carefully walked it over to the kitchen sink to run clean water over the diaper. Anita made him stand naked beside her while she loaded his urine-soaked clothes into the washer and started the wash cycle. Then she added a half cup of the baby detergent Dreft along with some borax-based bleach and tossed a plastic ball with a fabric softener into the water. Then she took him to his nursery and put a clean pair of training pants on him before dressing him in a t-shirt. When she was done, she eyed the small damp spot on the bed he had made while she was dressing him and said, "I think I'll put you in a playsuit this morning. You seem to be peeing more than usual. I don't want you making a puddle on the carpet while you play. If I put you in a playsuit, maybe it will soak up some of the mess before you start dripping all over my nice clean carpet." She took a small set of overalls out of the dresser drawer and started gathering up the material in her hands to dress him. Howard noticed that the overalls seemed to lack a seam in the legs. They were completely open through the crotch. The material of the legs flapped loosely as she held the garment over his head. She tugged the overalls over his head, working his arms through the straps and pulling the body of the coverall down over his training pants. The overalls were a little tight on his chest, but Anita forced them down his ribs with a mother's determination. Howard was a little surprised when they slipped over his heavily padded bottom with room to spare. Apparently the overalls had been designed with an extra ease in the bottom to accommodate extremely thick undergarments. When she had evened out the leg length at the cuffs, she picked him up and laid him on his back on the mattress of the bed. Anita arranged the leg halves loosely over his diminished limbs and started snapping the fasteners on the pants legs, working from one cuff up to his crotch and around to the other cuff. Howard suddenly understood what the overalls were for. They had been designed to let a mother undress her child for changing without taking off the overalls entirely. Knowing that his underwear was only separated from full view by a simple set of snaps made Howard feel vulnerable and unprotected. The feeling was intensified when she carried him back to the family room in her arms rather than let him walk on his own 2 feet. Somehow he had never made the connection that if she could lift him easily, then she could carry him with equal facility. It made him feel very small and helpless. Anita put him in front of his toys and proceeded to do her weekend housework while her ex-husband played with his blocks. Howard would have rather watched TV, but the controls on the set were out of his reach and Anita had placed the remote control on the upper shelf of the bookcase to keep him from playing with it. He built a model garage and parked one of the toy cars under the protection of the flat wooden roof he had made with long rectangular blocks. After a while, he grew sleepy and decided to lay down on the carpet for a short nap. When Anita walked by a little later carrying the laundry basket full of clean clothes, she discovered him sleeping soundly on the carpet with his thumb in his mouth. Instead of moving him, she got a flannel receiving blanket from the nursery and covered him up with it. The next time she walked by, she saw that his fist was wrapped tightly around the corner of the blanket with his thumb still in his mouth. Anita smiled, knowing that Howard was ready to be sent to her company's daycare center the next day.